Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be re-lent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a microlender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Well, today on Productivity Smarts, I want to welcome Melissa Jean Rod. She's a Texas-born author, speaker, and faith-forward guide helping women heal from deep father wounds and discover God as the Father who never leaves. With warmth, grace, humor, and hard-won insight, her book, The Daddy Files, transforms personal pain into purpose and hope. And I'm going to say this is an amazing book, and we're going to have an amazing conversation. It is a book where she goes on a journey and really discovers God as her guide to help her through a lot of the things she's gone through. And so just really put your seatbelt on, because what an amazing story she has and that she's gone through as we talk about some of the productivity things that she's learned from this, but also about the deep challenges she had to face and what she worked through to get to this point. But before we get started, I always ask questions around what is your favorite style of music, Melissa? And welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And, that's actually a trick question for me, because I like a bunch of genres. And I knew you were going to ask me that. And I like a bunch. Probably my go-to, though, is either country or blues.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's an interesting question because for myself, because I like a bunch. I listen to jazz, but I also listen to classical. I listen to gospel. I listen to R&B. And so I listen to different types. And, at any day, I could have a different favorite artist based on what's going on.
Yes. Or how I'm feeling, or what exactly is hitting right that minute. And so,
Exactly. Now, I'm going to have to ask you this one. Do you have any favorite artists?
Today, I was listening to Morgan Wallen earlier today.
Excellent. Well, listen, how did you get started? Obviously, you've written a very personable book, and, you write in a way that's really engaging. It's descriptive. It really is compelling, because as you're reading it or you're listening to it, you kind of want to know, okay, what happened next, right? So it's really, really good from that standpoint. How did you get started in your field, and what do you feel like has helped you become successful in that?
A lot of trial and error, for one, because the version that was published was not the original version by any stretch. The original version was very cut and dry, and very bare bones, and very clinical. There was no heart or emotion in it. I was trying to protect my mom, for one.
Right.
So it took peeling back the layers.
Yeah.
Slowly, every version, I put more of me in it. And I did a lot of praying while I was doing it because
Yeah.
even though shortly after starting to go through the realization that I didn't know who my father was, I realized talking to people that more and more people were discovering similar
Yeah.
stories. And they felt relieved that somebody out there could relate to them and understood and they weren't alone. And I was like,
Right.
okay, I'm going to write this. I felt like that's what God wanted me to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I started praying when I was writing, since I
Okay.
didn't take notes and I didn't journal when I was living it like I should have. So it was a lot of, okay, God, I don't want to live through this again, but I need to
Yeah.
get it on paper so that other people can understand and relate. So I had to start reliving it,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically.
It's interesting because as you're talking about it, I could sit and go, okay, so what does this have to do with productivity? And I would say it has everything to do with productivity. Because if you are dealing with unresolved emotions or unresolved relationships or unresolved stuff, and
It gets
you
away.
don't face it, and as you said, the first version, and I'm not surprised at that the first version was very clinical because it is if you read the book, you listen to the book, it is a deep emotional, where it's like, oh my God, she's having to go and like, when is this going to end for her? Right. Because it's so emotionally like gut wrenching what you had to go through and finding your biological father, or at least finding out who he was. And I'm not going to give away the story here, but it was a lot that you went through. And then the people that you were dealing with trying to get the answers, who you felt like should be open and honest and give you the answer, they weren't giving you the answer. And so I
Yeah.
can see how that's a story or a process that emotionally no one would want to go back through. Right.
Right.
So I think it's very brave. Let me ask you this, and this wasn't even one of my questions on my list, but having gone through that much reflection and emotional pulling back the layers, how has that helped you in just feeling free, feeling creative, feeling present, feeling like, okay, I'm good now?
It's helped a lot because, like you said, it does reveal stuff. Because, okay, I am going to reveal something from it. I went through a whirlwind relationship right out of high school. I didn't date much in high school. I went on a blind date a couple of weeks after I graduated high school. We got engaged shortly thereafter. So I graduated in June. We got engaged. We were going to get married that same August. So wham, bam, bam. 2 weeks before we were supposed to be married, he broke up with me. So fast forward to me writing the book.
Yeah.
30 plus years later, I realized that that was actually a rebound relationship from finding my original birth father and what he had pulled,
Right.
because he pulled a disappearing act on me. And it helped me realize that things that go on in your past,
Yeah.
if you don't deal with them, they do affect what you're going through now. And it does affect how you process things and how productive you can be.
Right.
Because if you don't, it stunts you.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've seen people who don't manage or deal with emotional trauma at an early age, that even though years later they are continually growing and they're 30, 40, whatever, there's certain parts of their personality that's still back in
Stuck.
that's stuck. Exactly.
Yeah.
And until you face it, analyze it, process it, work through it, are you able to grow? So I think this is your book is really a book for anyone who has gone through who's my parent kind of thing, or even if we know, but there's been childhood trauma. And I can't think of anyone that has lived life and not gone through some form of trauma. That's just life. It always throws curveballs. Let me ask you this, in your journey in writing the Daddy Files, like we said, it involved deep personal reflection and emotional labor.
Yes.
How did you stay productive and resilient through that process? Because, it's one thing to read the story as you were going through it, but it's another one to say, okay, now I'm X years old and I've lived that, but now I got to relive that at an emotional level to make it clear to the reader what I was going through. And yet I'm kind of reliving that. How did you deal with that and stay resilient through that process?
A lot of prayer. And I took breaks. And I know that sounds weird.
No.
But I would immerse myself in it. And then I would get to the point where I couldn't deal with it anymore. And I would set it aside. And sometimes it would be a month before I'd pick it up again. And my husband would be like, I thought you were writing a book. And I was like, yeah, I am. I'm doing other things around the book right now. I'm working on it.
Right.
But I needed that break for my heart and my mind.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have been too much, I think.
Yeah. It's called processing and perspective, right? When you're going through something that's extremely difficult emotionally, I remember going through my vertigo. And even though when I first had it, I was in the hospital for a day and a half. When I came home, I couldn't walk. And I used music, and I'm a musician, so I used music to help me neurologically to get back to where I could walk, and I did my TEDx. But for 5 years after that, I was very constrained. And a lot of things kind of fell apart in my life during that period of time. And that's not my show here for my story today, so we'll focus on yours. But I had to process. And many times in the processing, it would be just long walks, slow walks, because I was learning how to walk again. But it was questioning, reflecting, thinking, mulling over. And sometimes we have to have seasons in our life where we just wrestle emotionally with the challenges that we're going through so that we can make sense of them. So for yourself, many professionals struggle between urgent task and meaningful work. And they're also dealing with sometimes undealt with emotional baggage. How did you balance daily demands as you were writing the book? We already found, you get to a point, you go, I can't do it anymore. I'm going to take a break. But when you're in the process and you're kind of drudging through or working through or revealing, how did you get through that in writing the book?
Well, I was lucky that in the sense that I'm a stay-at-home mom. And I have been, well, the way I describe it is I've been a kept woman for 30 years, also known as a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
I really like saying I was a kept woman. It's just really...
It's so much better, right?
Yeah, it does. So much better. My husband doesn't always like it when I say that. It's the truth. So, that being said, 6 kids that I'm chauffeuring around to here, there, and everywhere.
Right.
It was an easy distraction for me in that I could focus on them to help relieve some of whatever I was going through with whatever I was writing at that point. And living through it too, from reading it, that my kids helped me when I was living through it too at different points. So I took it day by day, really, because some days I would immerse myself in it and bury myself in it. And then some days I would just not think about it.
I mean, it's interesting because it seems like, again, the book is really raw, right? Because again, you said that first version of it was very mechanical, but by the time what they actually published and released is, well, let's say radically emotional and revealing and honest, right? And so even as you're talking, I could hear it in your voice, just kind of still processing because it is very deep. So I think, you're extremely brave and courageous to say, you know what, my story was so dynamic and not so much unique, but so dynamic and deep that I know if I write this, it's not only help me, but there are probably other people out there who have gone through this, are going through this, and they may not have some of the tools that I have, or the support or the makeup right? I mean, you kind of find out later through DNA and all the ancestry stuff that you did that, hey, I'm Scottish and Irish, and there's some fight in me. There's some I'm not gonna give up. That again was something you discovered about yourself, where previously, if you just kind of, I don't know, man, I'm not gonna deal with it, then you don't know who you are and what you're made of. And so I think the challenges of life that are that deep, which puts you at a pause and make you stop and think, are there to help us unearth who we really are. It's kind of like the birthing of a diamond, right? It takes a lot of pressure to get to the goal and get to the gem of that diamond. And all of us, if we're going to reach our essence of who we really are going to have to go through some form of pressurized challenges emotionally, mentally, relationally, career-wise, or whatever, to become that person that we're meant to become. Right. And so I think it's really honorable, again, for you to have shared that. So let me ask you, from a routine standpoint and habits, what routines and habits help you maintain momentum? Because it's one thing to just say, I'm going to sit there and get gutted out, but you then have to kind of develop a routine or a habit. So what were some of the things that helped you to deal with doubt, distraction, or discouragement to get through this journey of writing the book?
I tried to set to where every day, and like I said, housewife, so I'd never really had a routine of my own. It was more around what the kids did. So I set myself a schedule of I needed to set at least X amount of hours a day that I would write.
Okay.
And whether it was the morning or the afternoon, it didn't really matter, because I discovered that it didn't matter if it was morning or evening. And it didn't have to be quiet. This is crazy, because I've discovered I'm an anomaly or a unicorn in this aspect. I can write when it is busy, loud, and chaotic just as well as I can if it's peaceful and quiet. But I had to make myself sit down X number of hours a day.
Yeah.
And it didn't have to be necessarily working on my book, but I had to sit down and write.
Exactly. So it was the discipline of just daily commitment, right?
Yes.
And I think this is really honorable again, because you're dealing with a topic that's emotional. And many times when you're working on something that's like gut-wrenching emotional for you, the emotions tend to kick in more and you go, I don't feel like it today, right? And so to say, I'm going to develop a habit of writing, and it sounds like you've written some other books, those family stories. And so your family's going to go, wait a minute, you're writing too many stories, Mom. But, so you've developed that habit.
They started joking about that. Everybody's going to have their own book. Like,
it could be, That's interesting.
That's what they get.
Exactly. But it does require that discipline, right? And sometimes being productive requires being disciplined through the emotional challenges that you face and facing those emotions and continually doing the right thing. Now, when you're healing from deep wounds, it often requires an identity shift in identity and in priorities. How can listeners apply this kind of inner work to their own goals? What would you recommend for someone that may be going through something right now? Our country's going through a lot. There are a lot of people who've lost jobs, having to move, just all kinds of turmoil. How do you make that shift to do that work and stay productive?
How would you make the shift for your identity? Well, for me, it was a case of realizing that my identity did not revolve around who my biological father was or who my mother was. It was me. My identity was in me and in God. And those were the two that were important. So I focused on God and my relationship with him and what I felt would make him happy, and being true to him and how I view others. So that entailed forgiving my mother, and it entailed still reaching out to people that didn't necessarily deserve forgiveness for whatever. And for me, that was it.
Yeah. I know when I went through some of the things that I went through when it was really difficult emotionally, I had to make a decision, and I share this early on and often, was I had to make a decision to get better, not bitter, and to grow through this and not go through this. Because sometimes when things happen, and especially with family, right, where someone in the family, they say something, they do something, and it all happens at the most unopportune times, whether it's a death in the family or something along that line, emotions get kind of high, undiscussed things that happen come up and get brought up. And then you find yourself like, we should be dealing with this situation and not fighting through something, but yet we have this. So the only way to process it, to me, was to make a decision to get better, not bitter. Right. And it sounds like what you've done, because you talk a lot, especially at the end, you talk a lot about forgiving and, just letting go, right? And processing. And, and sometimes, I think it was one time you were trying to process something and identify your biological father, and you just came up to your husband and your son and said, "I need a hug." And you just bawled, right? I remember that part of the story.
Actually, it was my two oldest sons.
Okay.
Because my husband was out of town.
Okay.
And and I did. I lost it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But you were able to just kind of call on them as the hands of God who were there with you. Spend that time, let the emotions go, bawl if you had to. And they were there because they've watched you go through this journey. They were there to comfort you and help you process. But in the process of doing that, you were able to, again, forgive or let go and move on, but yet still keep your quest. That was the other part, is that even when it got to that point, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to bawl my eyes out and I'm just done. I'm not doing this anymore. This is crazy. Nope. You had a deeper desire to know the truth for yourself, but you needed to take that emotional break and have that connection.
Exactly. Funny side note about that breakdown moment. When I was writing the book, I asked the boys, I was like, okay, guys, can I put this in and mention y'all by name? Because this was a pivotal moment for me, and I really want to include it. And they were both like, okay, I don't really remember that. I kind of do. They barely remember. One of them didn't remember it at all when I mentioned it. And as I talked it through, that he was like, oh, yeah, I kind of vaguely remember that. And the other one was like, yeah, I kind of think I remember that. And then the more I talked, he was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. I was like, oh my gosh, that was such a big deal to me. And nope.
Right. Right. They were just the healing hands.
They were just there.
You were the one going through. They were the healing hands. And a lot of times that's how life is, right? They help us and support us. We think they're right there and they still don't get it, but it's okay. So let me ask you this. What practical strategies do you recommend for managing emotional bandwidth? Now, I know we talked about walking away from the work at times, but sometimes people can't just walk away from their work for a month, right? What recommendations do you have when someone's going through something like that and they're in that place of healing and growth? How do you then manage that emotional bandwidth?
For me, I do a lot of talking with God.
Okay.
And I dump it on him. And
it's a lot of prayer.
A lot of prayer. I don't call it prayer so much. I chat with God.
Just talking it out.
And, I just talk it out like you and I are talking. And I will tell him, okay, God, this is how it is. I don't like how this is going. This is how I feel. I talk to him like I am talking to you.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I call him Dad. It's like, hey, Dad, my day today is crap. This happened. I don't like it. I am hurting. Help me. I don't know how to cope with this. Walk me through this. You said in the Bible, and I will quote the Bible back to him. I might not be able to quote the chapter and the verse, but I can tell him what he said because I remember what he said. And I will remind him, and I will remind him many times. And I did it. And also, I have gone to therapy many times.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful tool. If you have the right therapist, they are amazing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, talk therapy and prayer are very powerful tools. Meditation is another powerful
Yes,
tool. Sometimes,
definitely.
you pray about it, and then sometimes you just got to sit and think and process it.
Hmm.
Journaling is another
Yes.
amazing tool to process through these emotions and things that you're going through.
Music and
Yes, music.
sitting and watching sunsets. I
Yeah,
will just sit and outside in the quiet and
yeah.
just
Going for walks.
not think. Yes.
Exactly. And so all of these things are super, super important. So let me ask you this, and this is kind of like the last question I have for you, because this has been a great conversation. And again, The Daddy Files is the name of the book, and it's your journey in finding your biological father. And it is a journey, it is a gut-wrenching discovery and process. And it's like, how's this lady keeping continually going on? But she is. Again, I think it's an amazing goal-setting book or productivity book from the standpoint of you had a goal, and that goal was gut wrenching to get to the end of saying, I'm not going to give up until I know the answer to this question.
Mhm.
And it took years, and it took research, and it took talking to people and not getting the answers. And so it took stamina, it took grit, right, to do that.
Yes.
It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing journey and a well-written book as well. And it definitely will touch you emotionally. So let me ask you this as we wrap up here. When it comes to creativity and storytelling, because you did a great job of combining both of those, they both require structure and freedom. How do you intentionally cultivate the space for both in your writing and speaking life? Because both are really important, and you bring both to the table in your book.
Honestly, I don't know how I did it. I know that's not the answer you wanted, but it's the truth.
Well, I think it's fine, because here's the thing. It's like you were just being, what that says to me is you were just being your authentic self. You were putting yourself out there. You were just looking for,
I
how
was
do I
being
make
me.
this work? Yeah, you're looking for, how do I make this work? And sometimes, when it comes down to achieving some goals or accomplishing certain things or writing a book or, just making it through, there isn't a technique, right?
Yeah.
There isn't a technique. And I think that's fine too. But the technique is just be you, right?
Yeah,
And the
definitely.
other thing I did notice in your book, when it comes down, if there was a technique, is that you would not take no for an answer to get to the point where you got your question answered. At the end of the day, the listeners have to go and get your book to understand what that process was like for you and what you went through to get to that point. But I would say there are a lot of things that for someone who it wasn't a passion project would have given up, and they would have just said, okay, I'm just never going to know. That wasn't an answer for you. That wasn't the conclusion that you were
It
going to
wasn't.
say.
No, I
And
wasn't.
exactly. That's what made the whole journey of your book so powerful. As we talked before at our meeting and we were discussing your book, that I thought was really compelling, that you went on this no nonsense, I'm going to get the answer no matter what, and no matter how long it takes me. And sometimes that's life, right? Sometimes that's the way
Yeah,
life is. And many of us,
very
again,
much so.
we may be in a situation right now where the job is not there, or the relationships are falling apart, or this is happening, that happening. And in a book like this gives us the courage to say, hey, if she could have that kind of stamina and mindset to get to an answer that she got to, then could I borrow some of that and have that mindset as well? I know that's what I walked away with. So I really just want to thank
Thanks.
you for writing, for being very courageous, for being vulnerable and sharing your story, and just kind of putting it out there in a way that is going to help people who pick up and read your book. So, Melissa, thank you very much for being on the Productivity Smarts podcast. Where can people learn about you and about your speaking or coaching and the things that you do?
Thanks for having me. And my website is really difficult. It's melissajeanrod.com. So it's my name. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. And I just set up Twitter or X, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I haven't done anything yet. So we'll see.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we'll put all of that in the notes. We'll put links to your book on Amazon and other places. And again, what an amazing story. Congratulations. And, kudos for being so courageous and brave for telling the story because, there are a lot of people that you're going to help as they go through their own journey to do that inner healing with family and friends and so on. And so I really applaud you. And again, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.